Hola.
What's up, everybody? We're live. Welcome to another episode of Almost Patriots Podcast, episode 28, The Shortened Work Week, Male Vulnerability, and Coachella. This is a good one. As always, I'm here in San Diego. Got my buddy Mike in New York, Chris in Indianapolis,
Yo yo.
and, how's everything going, guys?
Busy, 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 busy.
What?
Living the dream.
Work is crazy right now.
Yeah,
Did
but
you
that's
cancel
always it.
your cold plunge?
I mean, I put all the paperwork in. Now it's just a matter of waiting.
That sucks. I can't believe that. It was like 8 months and you didn't receive it.
Yeah, I actually went on Yelp or Reddit maybe. Somebody else had the exact same thing. Basically,
Yeah, I would have spammed the shit out of that fucking company for not getting a cold plunge after a year and a half.
Yeah, that's ridiculous, man. And so they just they probably went under. Was it overseas somewhere?
Yeah, Australia.
I can't trust
Yeah,
those
well, the
Aussies.
problem is, I was just going to say, the problem is now if you order another one from Australia, you're going to get hit with the tariffs. So maybe you just hold on to it, and hopefully in the next 2 years you might get something.
Did we tariff Australia?
I don't know. I have no idea.
Yeah,
I'm just
I
messing
haven't looked at the list or anything, but
Yeah, I mean, there's so much bullshit going on in the news these days. It's kind of ridiculous.
yeah, that is true. That is true.
What was I gonna say? So in the news. Oh wait, before we start the show, we got to do the weekly Britney Spears tarot reading, which Chris is gonna pick. You're gonna pick the card this time. Is that how you're gonna do it? You did it last time, right?
I don't know how I can pick the card from here, but
I'll show you the
You,
deck.
you're gonna say stop.
I mean, I did pick the card last week, so I think Mike's got to
Mike,
do
you
it
want
this
to pick
time.
it? First, you got to cleanse it. That's the deck. Here we go. Shout out to the Britney Spears Oracle deck.
I don't know.
So we
Say
have a
stop,
card.
Mike.
All right, hold on.
Pick-
Let me cleanse.
Pick the one that's pink and yellow.
Let me cleanse. I think I have some
Real fucking original, Mike.
incense here. I'm gonna cleanse it out.
Oh my god.
We gotta cleanse it out, guys.
Oh, it's tarot reading? For some reason I thought it was carrot reading.
All right, perfect. Incense.
Yeah, that there's
Did
there's
you
that
really?
there's that
Oh,
lawyer
there you go.
education coming through right there.
All
Yeah, I thought it
right.
was we picked carrots.
All right, Mike. You tell me which card.
The one right there.
This one, right here.
Yeah.
No, the one to the right.
This one.
No, the one to the left.
Yeah, pick a card. This is the one to the
Yeah,
right.
that one right there. Yeah, that one's good.
Which one? I'm gonna do it again, just because you're pissing off Brittany.
All right, the one right next to your teeth.
Right
Oh,
here.
that one right there.
Yeah.
That one's good. Watch me get the same one.
Oh, you got the pain in the ass. No, I'm just kidding. You got the artist.
I'm the furthest thing from an artist.
It's an
Well,
easel.
you don't know what it signifies. We're gonna have to wait to see.
Oh, that's a good
Let's-
point. I
let's-
totally
Let me put
forgot.
up the artist here. Let's pull up the Britney Spears Oracle decoding book. And
Here we go.
the artist.
The suspense. I can't handle it.
Oh man. Brittany
Oh, it's
is a lost
alphabetical.
artist.
Oh, here we go. He's got it. Ladies and gentlemen, here we go.
Britney's artistic talents aren't limited to music. When she isn't
Uh-oh.
working, she loves to get in touch with her inner Van Gogh and spend some time at the easel. One of her flower paintings sold for $10,000, and proceeds went to benefit the victims of the 2017 shooting in Las Vegas. Just as she does with music and dance, Britney uses art to express herself and never takes her work too seriously. Unlock your creativity and see the world in a bright, vibrant color as the artist. Oh, so it says, don't be a grumpy piece of shit. Because, and we're going to talk about this later.
That was
but-
in it, huh?
Because if you don't use your creativity, then it turns into anxiety.
So
artist.
basically, it just said to be more artistic.
Something that Jeff is going to tell me, what something's fucked up. Your mic is clipping and crapping. Might be input is too high. Okay.
Thanks, Jeff.
There's no input on this. Thanks, Jeff.
I think it's because you're holding it all the time and the cord
But it
moves
didn't used
around.
to do this, remember?
No, well, it did. It's always done it when you had the old cord.
No, and I had the old mic. Remember, I got this is a new mic in New York that didn't do it. Like I can move it around. It could be this this thing, but there's no way to to control the input. I don't think on this. So, anyways, so the artist mic, that was the card that you got. No, noise cancellation. Respect. So don't be grump. And anyways, in the news, guys, there's a bunch of stuff happening this week in the news. Let's start off with the helicopter crash. This is something that I didn't necessarily learn a lot about, but Chris wanted to bring it up. It looks like there was over the Hudson River some crazy stuff going on there. What happened there, buddy?
Yeah, so the CEO of Siemens Rail and his family was in the helicopter. Apparently, it was a Navy SEAL pilot. But what was kind of terrifying is if you watch the videos, the second video that came out, it shows the rotor head, like the entire rotor head, like falling into the water like 15 seconds later. So now somebody said that the gearbox came off with the rotor head. I didn't see that in the video, but that doesn't mean it's not true. But basically, we're talking about like either just gross negligence as far as maintenance is concerned, or catastrophic mechanical failure, like something just that shouldn't break broke, right?
So the entire rotor just completely came off of the helicopter.
Yeah, the whole rotor head, both rotor blades are still attached to the mast, and so according to some other people that I've talked to, they said that the gearbox was still attached to the mast. So, yeah, so like I don't know how it is on this helicopter, but on a Black Hawk, the main gearbox is held on with 11 bolts, and they're like pretty big. I mean, like they're pretty substantial. These bolts aren't tiny, and they're like 500 foot-pounds of torque each. So like for these things to come off, it's just like I said, it's either just serious maintenance negligence or just like catastrophic failure. Well, also sabotage. I mean, it's another CEO, so maybe he's pissed somebody off, but.
Bum,
One
bum,
of the
bum,
things,
bum.
one of the things that was really interesting about it is the director of maintenance for the company that fixes the helicopter. After it happened, he stopped flights because he wanted to do like an operational pause to like kind of figure out what's going on. And the CEO of the company, and I don't remember the company's name, they fired the director of maintenance for doing the operational pause, which is like weird. And then the FAA then shut them down for not having a director of maintenance because
Wow.
they're like basically saying something fishy is going on, right?
Well, let me ask you this, Chris. Can I ask you a question? Typically, in the commercial space, do you need a maintenance log for each of the planes? Do you need to get an FAA approval every year based on that helicopter's capabilities? Is that typically like something that happens in the FAA space?
Yeah. So depending on which part, like Part 91 or Part 105, depending on where you fall, I think it's Part 91 for civil helicopters. But there's a whole list of rules for like what you have to do, how to comply, what maintenance schedule have to be done. Like you can't have anybody not FAA certified signing off maintenance. So like that's what the AMP certification is, so that you can
Okay.
work on, yeah, there's a ton of hoops to jump through. So it's I mean, most of these planes nowadays, they're pretty rigorously monitored. So it's kind of surprising that stuff like this happens now.
So basically, let me know not to take not a plane, a helicopter by this company. You're going to be my go-to because I want to see all their maintenance records before I go up there. And I'm going to send it to you so you can give me an individual assessment to see if this is safe.
But I mean, like, is this like corporate sabotage or whatever? Is it weird that this guy is like, who's the CEO? Is there anything like an investigation? I
I
mean,
haven't
like, yeah,
looked
it's
into the guy.
tragic that this thing came off the helicopter, but that's
I
fucked
haven't
up.
looked. I haven't looked into this guy, but from maintenance perspective, like this is not something that was like, oh yeah, okay, cool, I can see that happening. No, this is like a what the shit, like how the fuck did that happen? Like it just that just doesn't happen, right?
Mhm.
And so, like I said, it's got to be like it's either just gross negligence, sabotage, or just unforeseen catastrophic failure.
Well, I,
And
Yeah.
I
I was
just
gonna,
have to jump in. I just have to say one thing. So I read a report that the pilot took off, realized that he was low on fuel, and then was turning around to refuel. I don't know if you guys read that at all,
Oh, really? I
but
didn't know that.
if that's the case, then like quite honestly, what the fuck is the pilot doing?
yeah, I don't know. This is definitely not pilot error, that's for sure. I mean, you couldn't make the rotor head fall off if you wanted, if you tried. Um, but I mean, with everything that's going on, this is kind of indicative of the culture that we're having right now. So I don't know if you guys read that study about the construction world. For every 10 people retiring, only one person's taking their place in
Yeah,
construction, and it's essentially like that in every field that requires opposable thumbs and some sort of physical qualification, like some sort of physical
man.
work. um, Airline industry, AMP mechanic licenses are down across the board. I mean, and so I wonder how much of this is just stress on the limited individuals that have the qualifications to do this kind of work.
Well,
And
I think it's a combination of things because you hit it right on the head. Like when it comes to these industries, there's definitely less applicants, less individuals that are going into these fields. So there's definitely a shortage. And it's not just this field, though, it's just in general. Best way I could put it in construction workers, in manufacturing, there has been a severe decline in those industries because of a couple fold. One, obviously, jobs are going other places, but two, it's because everybody thinks they should be working in finance or lawyers or accountants, and those careers, like the construction careers, aren't as sexy anymore. It used to be I could be a construction worker, I was respected, I was a mechanic, I was respected, I can make a livable wage. Nowadays, it's kind of taken the opposite approach, and people are like, why would I even go into those fields? Everything's about education. I go to college to get a degree to move up in the world, and they always look down on those jobs. So, yeah,
well, there's a
it's
there's
a
a
tough.
dip. I think we're seeing the other side of the wave. So for a long time, maybe the last probably, I don't know, 15 or 20 years, those kind of jobs weren't paying well enough
Yeah.
to like own a home and like take care of your family and all that kind of stuff. And so I think that's sort of one of the variables. But now, I mean, if you go to a major city and you're like an electrician,
Oh.
you,
Yep.
I mean, they all make whatever money they want to make because there's such a shortage. I mean, like in Indy, there's a backlog for most construction work. Everybody's got 5 or 6 projects waiting in the wind because they
Yep.
just don't have the manpower to do them all. And
Hmm.
I mean, they charge whatever they want. Charge whatever you want.
Yeah.
Buying a
What's your
construction
thought?
business
What's your
is
thought? Hold on. What's your thought, Ricardo? Because I know Ricardo is gonna go conspiracy
Yeah,
theorist right
yeah.
now, 101.
I mean, my thoughts are like, my thoughts and prayers are with the families of the people that died in both the recent helicopter crashes. I mean, obviously, it's kind of fishy that some of these things are happening to important people. Or maybe I don't know enough about the data, but it's just like we had that helicopter crash in DC, and then now we had this one with the Siemens guy, and I don't know enough mechanically, but obviously I'm thinking, we're these aren't like the ones in Vegas aren't crashing. The ones are like, hey, tour Vegas for like, for 2 hours. Like those people there's like went up to Vegas. There's like 5 helicopters up in the air all day long, and none of those people died. So I don't know. Like I said, I don't know enough about the industry just to make like some sort of analysis. But when two people make the news dying in these kind of like aircrafts, I just think it's maybe they're easy to sabotage in a way. Maybe somebody found a loophole where it's like really difficult for them to figure out how this shit happened. or something like
Mm-hmm.
that. Just some other way, or it's just maybe some of these people just piss them like the wrong people off though.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
But yeah,
it's crazy. It's a crazy world that we're living in.
you know what else is crazy is the price of Coachella tickets this year, man. I don't know if you guys have heard this, but so 60% of the Coachella tickets were financed. I mean, this is pretty crazy. This is an article I read too here in GQ about like whether Coachella was worth going into debt for. And did a little bit of research, and I was like, okay, this is such a to me this is just a big monopoly thing, right? And so, general admission Coachella tickets started about $5.99, right, with VIP passes reaching about 1,400, and it didn't include any expenses like travel, lodging, and food, right? So you're looking at probably another $1,000, like $2,500 for the weekend or something like that. But to manage all the costs, Coachella they offered their own financing with a $50 deposit, and then you can pay the remainder in monthly installments, and it includes a flat fee of $41, but they don't charge interest. So they are kind of charging an upfront sort of 1% interest fee. It looks like, or a little bit less. I don't know. I haven't figured it out. But so I was wondering, first of all, that's hilarious. Okay, it's like to kind of finance your way to like a weekend. And so I started to
Festival.
dig, right. So I started to dig a little bit deeper into like what millennials and the younger generations are spending on, and I found an article that was talking about how a lot, especially with millennials, the market is shifting a lot from buying goods and consumers. And the article was insightful, and basically what it was saying was that the boomer generation was the biggest consumer generation that man has ever known, and mostly because because of the industrial revolution and all that stuff, but because a lot of the people in the boomer generation didn't grow up with the physical things they needed, right? And so their job was acquiring materials. And then the millennials have grown up in sort of like, and to coin Jeff, post scarcity society. The data reflects that actually. And so these millennials, because they've grown up and they're so accustomed to having pretty much any material thing that they want, that they're spending more money on experiences. And so this Coachella type of an event, would be considered that type of thing. And I think that's where we're seeing sort of an explosion, not explosion, but festivals all over the world and high prices and commercial and corporate festivals. But it seems like a lot of millennial spending from a marketing perspective is geared toward the fact that they actually have had most of the material things that they needed growing up with. And so now they're spending more money on experiences. And so, still this, why would you finance this thing? I mean, I don't know. Who cares? People, they don't have a lot of jobs either. So, but I
No,
just think
just
that the ticket prices are kind of outrageous.
yeah, but this is indicative of, to me, a bubble. 60% of the tickets were financed, which means either they didn't have the money at the time to pay it all up front, or they didn't want to go in debt and they realized, hey, I could just continue to pay this over time. If it's $50, $100, I'm curious to know the terms with regards to how many years you have the opportunity to pay this off, because it would
So
be hilarious
the terms
if
are,
somebody took a 3-year loan out to pay this off.
well, I mean, I'm sure you can do that as well, but it says here that you can pay the remainder in a different, you can select the amount of monthly installments. So like, so you want to pay it faster or more, and they don't charge interest, but it includes a $41 fee straight up just to finance the ticket over. So $41 to finance the 2,500 over however much you need. I don't know how much that is, but
Yeah,
it's not a ton.
I don't know. I'm still working off my debt to Chris for buying the Indy 500 tickets.
Oh yeah,
So I
that's
Yeah.
can't, I can't, I can't, I
okay.
can't speak to this topic. Um,
Well, then I think everybody now. I think a lot of the younger generation, the millennials. I mean, I'm technically a millennial, and Mike's a millennial. The Gen Z generation, everything is all about what you can put on on Instagram. So like, I think to them, things like Coachella, because Coachella is considered one of the biggest music festivals in the country, is like worth financing and paying a little bit extra because then you're like, oh yeah, I was there. I got my Instagram shot at Coachella. I did the thing. And I think that's more important to them now than a lot of other things, right? I mean, the mundane is like what we grew up with, right? And now like mundane is Coachella. I mean, that's
Yeah,
you know,
I agree. Can you guys hear me? Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can hear you fine.
Trying to
I think it's
eliminate the
comical with
clicking.
Coachella. I think it's just comical with Coachella because I really, I haven't really paid attention to the lineup. Obviously, you see some news of who's performing and, kind of the concerts, who has new songs coming out, etc. I don't know. Just for me, it never really did it, especially with those massive concerts, especially with the lodging aspect. Like I saw on Instagram, people putting up reels. This is how much money I spent at Coachella, and you were talking, ridiculous amounts of money, excessive amounts of monies. Ricardo, did you just started playing music? Ricardo actually is getting ready for Coachella next year. He's going to be performing there. He's working on his set right now
I wouldn't
as
do it.
his
No way,
manager. Yeah, you don't want to put
I would
you don't
not
want to
do
put
it.
all the attendees in debt by financing their tickets.
Yeah, I mean, like I would just play somewhere nearby instead of Coachella. But Coachella probably pays pretty good. I know Diplo helicopters in for 90 grand, drops a set, and then leaves. I'm not saying I wouldn't do that, but I'm nowhere near the Diplo that he is.
Yeah, because isn't Coachella like in Joshua Tree, in the middle of nowhere?
Yeah, it's in like Palm Desert or something or
Yeah,
whatever.
it's just like
Yeah, it's in the
nothing
middle of
nearby. It's
nowhere.
in the
There's
nowhere.
nothing there.
I mean, I think
heard-
you can like
Of
rent
its name,
homes
it's the
nearby
desert.
and like party there and shit, But I don't
Oh, yeah.
think like homes nearby. Like I've heard people like throw like parties and they like hang out and then
Yeah,
they
yeah.
go see whoever they want and they go back to the comfort of the home. But it
Yeah,
sounds
makes
like
sense.
I'm not interested in Coachella ever.
I'm not
Hell
interested in Coachella. I'm not interested in Coachella or what is it, Stagecoach or anything with the word coach in it. It's no offense to Coach the products. I think you guys.
Yeah, because you have a problem with authority, and a coach usually tells you what to do, and you're like, hell no.
Wow. I mean, you really.
Your dating
really?
coach you fired after one date.
So what are you talking about? The government announces a shortened work week. I have no idea what Mike is. I think he's upset about his own dating scandal. But so I checked in on this, guys, and apparently I was wrong. And this was just like a viral, like fake news. And so I thought that the Trump or the current administration had. I read an article that had shortened the work week to 32 hours and raised the minimum wage, but apparently it's quite the opposite. Oh, it's making it worse. All right. How about just like this? It's quite the opposite. So basically, what Trump actually did was prohibit the raising of the minimum wage. So that's not really good. And so like I was thinking, how do you guys feel about this? And I remember when I was working, there was talk of kind of switching to this sort of like, what are you talking about, dude? Stop texting me.
It's
Hello. So
you there?
Yeah, can you hear me? Is there a mic problem?
Yeah, it's still
Yeah,
pretty bad.
It's pretty bad.
What's going on? I can't hear it.
Yeah, that clicking's gotten worse.
Yeah.
I don't know what you did.
All right, let me try to fix this. But you guys, I wanted to get your opinion on whether or not moving to a shorter work week, and like what you might think some of the benefits might be.
Yeah, so the UK last year finished a really long study. They had, I think, like 500 businesses or something. I have to look up the numbers, but they did a 4-day work week study. A bunch of companies did a 4-day work week and documented everything. And the results were, fantastic. Productivity went up. Everybody was happier. But
it's
I
the
feel,
UK.
Yeah, I know, but it's still it's obviously different variables. But even in the stuff I did for my master's, like 410s is a pretty common practice in the aerospace industry. And 410s for those of you are there's four 10-hour work days. So like Monday through Thursday, you work 10-hour days, and then Friday, you have Friday off or some sort of variable. And it seems to work really well, especially in the sort of jobs that are like more hands-on, physical. because like you work 4 10-hour days, you do a lot of like physical work, and then you have 3 days off to like sort of relax. And I mean, it seems to work really well. I mean, I think the problem is always going to be, like, I think for a long time the problem was, companies didn't want to pay for the commercial real estate being, empty. But now everybody's got empty commercial real estate. So to me, 4 days makes sense now.
Yeah. Yeah, it depends. So it like the 4 days, 10-hour work days, I'm all for. I don't think you can be as productive for 4 days, 32-hour work week. The one thing that makes the U.S. and our market so strong is the fact that it's capitalism. It's about working. It's about making money. Now, when it comes to a psychological element, happiness and a better work life balance, I would not be surprised that that definitely has an impact on, obviously living longer, being happier, doing more things with your family.
Right.
I agree with that. But you're still going to get the people that work, into the weekends, entrepreneurs, and you're still going to need help for that. So it all depends on the perspective that an individual wants to pursue.
Yeah, I agree. Do you guys? Does the mic sound any better, guys?
It does.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, I think it was just the cable, so I just switched it out and moved a little bit away from wherever I think maybe even the speakers might have been doing some weird shit. Anyways, so yeah, I mean, that was fake news. I think most of us are now kind of used to a hybrid work week anyways. So, I think we talked a little bit about this on the show before, and Chris was telling us about how his work week specifically would benefit Mike, and Mike does not have a hybrid work week, even though the last time I called him, he was working from home, so he was doing good.
Because I was dying.
Yeah, absolutely. So here's another topic that I saw in the news. I kind of saw this one today. It's a little bit crazy. And so I was reading an article here, and I got a video for us to see as well. And so apparently the government in California has been shutting down farms, and the most recently it shut down 12 farms in the Point Reyes area here in California. And there's an interview here with some local residents and people. In addition to shutting the farms down, which means that they basically said, hey, look, you can't own cows, you can't have animals on this land, and you can't produce anything. Yeah, is this crazy? They put gag orders on all 12 so they couldn't go to the community to drum up support. And here's a little bit more about that. This is
right now there's a fight going on in Point Reyes. They just shut down a dozen farms, just like that. It's a fight that was going on for the last 8 years. Really doubled down on those farmers 2 years ago, and they put a gag order on them, so they couldn't even ask the community to stand up for them.
So they went out like they shut them down, meaning they
done.
Can't even have cows or anything.
They've got to move off the property. They've been there for over 100 years. Those dairies started in 1857, and a lot of the same families have been there the whole time. Our local RCD even came up with money to upgrade the ranches if needed, and the environmental group said no thanks. They wanted to take the land over, and so they forced these farmers to sign an agreement that are pushing them all out. So we're going to lose half of our dairies in Marin County and a bunch of the beef ranches that provide local food.
So where can they go to find out more information about what's going on with these 12 farms, or is there anywhere?
There's not a lot of places. Marin Independent Journal, has done a good job reporting about it. My Instagram, Shalina93 Racing, they can find information. My sister, Dairy Girl Diet.
Perfect. So you guys kind of get the idea there. That's kind of crazy. And so it looks like in the name of sort of environmental protection, some of these farms in Northern California have been getting shut down, right? And then basically kicked off the farming grid. And I mean, it's not chickens or anything. We're talking about beef and milk, and I think those are big important inputs for us. And so this kind of sucks. This definitely isn't something that I like to see from my government. I mean, what are you guys' thoughts on this?
Well, I think the video doesn't express enough information. You don't hear really exactly what the details behind it are. I think she said it had to do with, what was it? It was environmental
thing.
reason.
Yeah.
Yeah. I can understand potentially shutting down a farm or a portion of the farm if there is a real environmental issue. However, 12 farms, it's a massive amount of land, especially if you have cattle running around, especially dairy. It's that seems a little bit excessive. But once again, I don't know the details. But knowing California, they'll find because there's so many regulations and things that you have to abide by. They'll find the smallest thing and then they'll shut you down. But it appears, though, I think she said they signed agreements to take over the land. So I'm hoping they got compensated for that land. But it's definitely a problem because California will just find one little thing and be like, whoa, hold on, we got to take your land. This is nope, you violated the law here, California. Thank God I
that's
don't live in
awful.
that state.
Yeah, there was so here at Miramar they built a new hangar, I don't know, like 5 years ago, and they're trying to build a parking lot, but because so there's an endangered shrimp in San Diego. I don't know if you guys know about this. Like I think it's called periwinkle, or there's some like endangered shrimp that lives mostly below the surface. So like you would never ever accidentally encounter them. But if you dig holes, then they like show up in the rainwater. And so some Marines were out four wheeling, in this area that they were gonna, hopefully turn into a parking lot later. And then it rained, and then the environmental survey guys came out and said there's periwinkle shrimp in the rainwater, and so they can't build a parking lot there. Like just so now there's this massive hangar with no parking.
Yeah.
Because of the periwinkle shrimp.
Because of whatever shrimp that's endangered
Yeah.
species that some environmentalist found in the
But-
puddle or whatever.
But
Yeah.
I do also want to take the opposite approach here, though, and be the devil advocate and sit there and say there could be an environmental issue there. There could be a real reason that they take over that land. And could they, obviously these individuals being displaced from their land, is there another area where they could be relocated? Okay, potentially. But environmental issues, though, sometimes are serious issues, and I can understand why the states get involved. The problem is you're just hearing snippets here. So I don't know the full extent of everything. I do think it's wrong with the gag order. You can't discuss what's going on. You can't talk to your community about what's going on and get their
I think
input
that
into
part
it.
made me feel a little shady and uncomfortable. I was like, okay, yeah, they closed them down. They're like, and they put gag orders, and I was like, what? Why would they do that? That's really weird.
Because a lobbyist is taking over that land without you
Well,
knowing.
I mean, like what I don't understand is like what environmental thing can't be resolved on a dairy farm.
a land grab.
Well, no, well, yeah, I mean, I get that. I mean,
What?
obviously,
Wait, what would you say?
like-
What environmental thing
okay,
cannot
so-
be resolved?
yeah, like
Wait,
what can they not resolve? Like, so the only solution is kicking everybody off the property and not having dairy cows, right? That's the only
Yeah.
solution. So, what environmental problem is so bad that the only solution is to evict the people on the property?
maybe
that's-
something's in
like-
in the soil that the cows or whoever are trampling on. Maybe Hannah's cell phone number that she responded to is down there. I don't know. I can't
Hannah's
tell
in
you.
New York, man. She's not going to California. She's smarter than that.
You never know. You
Fucking
never know.
California, man.
Yeah, I to be honest with you, I don't know. That's the problem. Nobody knows. Also another thing is these proceedings are very, tight-lipped. You don't hear everything. You don't hear the whole story. You don't hear the environmental issues because, let's say that environmental issue is a huge issue that impacts a ton of people in California. They don't want that out there. Or maybe there really isn't an environmental issue and they're just using the environmental, argument. So it's a hard argument to make, but I want to hear some more, and I want to follow her Instagram, not for the story, but
Just
I
to
want to
see.
follow it just see her.
That's
Yeah.
kind of weird and creepy. But I mean, as long as you're doing it to save the farms,
Was
you
it
know,
racing girl 93
She's-
or something like that?
Save
She was
the
hot.
farms. Yeah, so let's see if you guys are interested.
Got my
Look
attention.
more into that. That sounds like something that's a little bit interesting. What about
Best way.
not as interesting as a partnership between India and the United States, right, Mike? You love this partnership.
Yeah.
Either you like
I love it.
Bollywood or you just really like some.
Actually,
fucking
I've seen a
curry.
couple of really good. I'm
Some
not gonna
fucking-
lie. I've
you're a
watched some really
curry
good
lover.
Bollywood movies.
You love
no.
curry, apparently.
so the whole thing with this tariff situation with China and the U.S., it opens a massive opportunity with India. The one thing I was reading up is because I thought it was really interesting because India has been negotiating with Trump. And I started reading some facts and I wanted to talk with you guys about this. So right now, China basically owns the share of U.S. apparel imports at 25%. India only provides 3.8%. Okay, the in India, the biggest advantage for them, which they're identified as the sectors that they really want to go after, obviously is apparel and clothing, accessories, chemicals, plastics, rubbers. Now, this is an interesting topic. In India, okay, the U.S. imports about 7% of electronics, worth about $900 billion, whereas China has 50% of that market. The funny thing is, export of iPhones, smartphones, tablets, laptops from India to the U.S. is 20% cheaper than from China. 20% cheaper. It makes more sense for India, for us to have a better partnership with India so they can develop their manufacturing, their facilities, and we benefit as well because we take the global power or the global reliance at China away. The next thing I want to talk about is, and this is an important factor, China has a stronghold on rare earth metals and materials. India is third in the world. Okay, and we already have agreements in place with them about obviously with the rare earths and whatnot, but materials. But if we can continue, okay, to develop our relationships so that we can tap into those rare earth materials and develop and use that instead of relying on China, that benefits both countries. That benefits us, but it also benefits India from a financial aspect, which would be a great thing. Now, India has already started to put policies and legislation into place to establish and support rare earth like research and development, which is great. And they plan on building the country's first like rare earth metals and alloy plant, which is going to be it's going to be a huge thing. So my thing is, I'd rather go and develop India's manufacturing capabilities. I'd rather go to India, develop that up, take the power away from China, continue to develop a trade relationship with India, because India's got tons of people, India's got great resources, and there's a bargain and a benefit for both countries there.
Some good points for sure. I like that. It's interesting. I think my question is, man, and I know a little bit about India. Is do India and China have strategic partnerships? I feel like during what's up with
BRICS.
not just BRICS,
Yeah.
but I feel like I also saw something like China is a blank importer and India is a blank exporter, and so they got. I think it might have to do with grains and energy or something like that. But like I think they have some sort of trade ties that allows China to sort of say, hey, well then you have to buy iPhones from us at 20% more.
Well, I would imagine that, I mean, with how lopsided it was with us and China for a really, really long time, that India would be probably worse, I would imagine. I mean, if we were willing to pay more for products than we should have, then I imagine India
Yeah,
is probably a little bit weaker in the bargaining side.
yeah. So China has agreements with India. The issue is, and the thing where the tariffs come in from the U.S. though is what the situation with India though is they do not want Chinese products to go through India. They want to block all transshipments of Chinese products. So what does that do? It opens the opportunity of India directly to the United States straightforward instead in increasing their market share and their productivity of products towards us. It's a benefit. I know that India and the U.S. right now are, turning around and they're meeting and negotiating new tariff deals. They definitely have exemptions on certain products and goods. It's going to be interesting how it plays out, but I'm all for it because, quite honestly, if I'm in the business world, I think about X's and O's. I think about the bottom line. I think about my product. How do I get better quality? How do I get a better opportunity for another country, and also, quite frankly, for me personally, I want to go to India and see some cricket. Like for me personally, I want to go. I hope somebody can explain that to me.
The cricket, I love. I mean, people who love it really, really, really love it. So apparently, according to ChatGPT, there's a couple of things that have held the U.S. back here, and some of these seem to be losing their relevance. So this is interesting. ChatGPT telling me that one of the things is not India's non-aligned foreign policy, like during the Cold War. India led sort of a non-aligned movement and maintained a pretty big distance from the U.S. and Russia, and those kind of got close to China there. Some of their nuclear policy stuff, they did a bunch of nuclear tests in 74 and 98, and it led to sanctions from the U.S. So there's some sanctions in place there. So that might be sort of a maybe a leverage point there. India did not sign the nuclear non-proliferation treaty. So it didn't want to do that. So that's another reason that we kind of like politically don't really play around with them. And I know that we have some economic and military ties with Pakistan, and they hate Pakistan. So I think that's kind of the way that the just some little stuff there. And then there's always the human rights stuff and all that crap that gets in the way of the trade. Not that it's crap, but it's just a reason to not play a game. But yeah, it looks like the history that India has placed a lot of protectionist tariffs and policies that made U.S. businesses a lot more cautious. It looks like they played a little trade war themselves. So it doesn't look like they have the best. They don't seem to be the easiest to do business with. Let's put it that way.
Look, anybody is better than China right now.
Well, yeah. I mean, so what's going on? So we tariff China 100. What is the
245%?
All right,
that's not a confirmed number, actually.
Okay, so
they had to come out and say that's not confirmed.
Okay, so there's a big tariff on these motherfuckers, all right? So big that, 4 Chinese people out of the 4 billion made TikTok videos about how all of the luxury goods are made in China. And so I saw a video about it. First of all, if you didn't know that the luxury goods were made in China, you need to stop watching TV and put your phone down and start reading books. All right, that's the first thing you need to do. You're not done with school yet, right?
Did you see the one about the Hermes bag, or was it a Birkin bag or a Hermes bag? No, they sell it for $33,000, and it cost them in China, same materials, everything, without the logo on it. It was like $500.
Yeah, absolutely. Guess who invented the internet? All right, next. It's like you can't sell
you
shit.
Did?
Yeah, we did. Yeah, and so that's a tough one for them, but the India thing, and so like we're going to tariff them, and so I'm seeing like there's all these threats, and so who holds the cards here really? I personally don't understand the relationship enough because I'm not an economist. I do understand that we have a lot of offshoring, and China's behaved in sort of like this back and forth pattern, stealing IP and blah blah blah. And whatever, so they don't really play by the rules. And like what I've heard from most people from businesses that like they say they're going to do stuff and then they just kind of ignore everything. Like they don't really care. They're just going to do whatever they can to get it to do it however they want, which is fine. But I mean, like what exactly is going to happen? I mean, like like these guys are not going to be able to sell a whole bunch of stuff that they have raw materials for. Their industry is going to get clogged up. There's not enough money in India. The only thing they can do is like print money and then let their own consumers purchase the surplus of products, right? Which is going to tank the economy anyways. So I'm not really sure what China's cards are.
Well, China will play the cards that we don't have to provide all these things. We're going to cancel all your agreements. We have all the leverage as we're infiltrated in your networks, your technology. We'll go around you. If you're not going to go directly to us, we'll go around you to other countries, ship our products to other countries. The scary thing, though, the one thing, though, that does concern me is China is going to Canada and trying to negotiate a deal, okay? I get pissed off. Right? Yeah, crude oil. I look, you obviously have to be smart when you're dealing with China because China will go to all these other nations and countries and try to cut agreements that work actually to the harm of their nation and benefit the other country because it continues to create a better relationship between them and gives them access because their ultimate goal is to take down the major superpowers, and the superpower in this case is the U.S. We are on a head-to-head clash with China. The issue is we don't want those relationships with those other countries to get better. Do I think this tariff war is going to end? Yeah, I think eventually it will end because everything ends. How long it takes, I don't know. Are there going to be concessions between both countries? Absolutely. I think that's just the nature of politics. But I think there's going to be a more concentrated effort to not allow China to circumvent the U.S. in a multitude of areas, especially infrastructure. I really think infrastructure, this administration is going to work its ass off to not be undermined and reliant on China.
Got it. I think so too. I mean, do they place pretty big tariffs on our goods? Is from what I've read, as far as like
125, I think. I think the U.S. is at 145 and they're at 125.
I mean, that's okay. That's it seems annoying, but I'm sure whatever gets to the negotiating table. I think at this point, and if it saves us some money, we have a huge debt that we need to pay. So I think it's time to start just kind of like renegotiating some of these trade deals. And this is the way the administration is going to do it, fine. As long as they get worked out right,
Well, I mean, I feel like on this subject specifically, the birth rate has dropped significantly in China. And obviously the U.S. has a similar problem. It's not quite as problematic as Chinese because of their whole one child policy for such a long time. India does not have that problem. India's birth rate has not declined. They are projected to have a significant increase.
They don't know what birth control is there.
Well, so if you look at some of the projections,
Good for them.
India is supposed to take over as the number one GDP in the next 10 years. And at the current pace, during the Biden administration was the last time I looked, so I haven't seen anything since Trump, but during the Biden administration at pace, I think it was 2050 or something, India would have the number one GDP. And so if that happens, then they're going to have more leverage. China is going in the wrong direction, though, and we're going in the wrong direction too. I mean, I feel like with this whole thing that Trump's trying to do, I'm all for it. I mean, I've thought of this for a long time. We have not been leveraging the infrastructure that we have built on the backs of dead Americans to benefit Americans. It's always been to benefit other countries, and I'm glad that we're not doing that anymore, or at least trying not to do it anymore.
Well, yeah, let's see what happens with India. I love their food and their Bollywood movies.
Well, I thought I loved curry until I went to India and had curry, and that's not the same.
It's not. Is it? Oh yeah, it's really good.
It's not.
Why,
no,
Chris? Did you have a problem with the curry?
It's like lava, dude.
It's hot.
Oh my god! So we stayed at a hotel in Hyderabad, and like I said, I thought I liked curry. I had yellow curry, like curry, and then I went down there and I basically would get a spoonful of curry, like with the meat or whatever, and I'd put it on a pound of jasmine rice and just mix it and mix it and mix it.
So that
and
absorbed all the shit.
Still be fucking lava. Still just burn my insides.
That's
oh my god!
great.
Sounds like a you problem.
Well,
Sure, I guess.
what another you problem is, Mike, is the way that sadness is tied to happiness.
Oh yeah.
According to Chris. Chris has a discovery here. He wants to share with the group.
Chris, are you sad?
No. I was having a conversation with somebody today. Not ChatGPT.
Hannah?
Hannah, did she call you?
She called you? Were you sad?
That's awesome.
We can just assume it was Hannah. Okay.
When you get your AI home droid that'll help you, do stuff around the house, are you gonna name her Hannah? I would name her Hannah.
Probably.
Hey, what? Hey,
I
you
would
gotta
name your
send me
iced
her.
plunge
You gotta
Hannah.
send me her phone number because I'm gonna send her a text message.
I don't have her phone number. I gave her
Can't
my number.
harass
And
people, Mike.
She never sent me a message.
You
so.
can't harass people from. Well, actually, they're not from the show, so yeah, that's actually that works out. So what's up?
I was just gonna say, hey, my friend Chris wanted to know how you're doing. That's not harassing. That's being.
I mean,
polite.
she knows she knows where our podcast
No.
is. If she's interested, she'll find me.
Oh, she knows you're the big deal. Anyway, keep going. I'm sorry.
Yeah, no. Go ahead. Chris is talking about sadness and happiness and how both of them are tied to his experiences with Hannah.
Yes, exactly, 100%. That's 100% correct. Well, no, I was talking about perspective, today, and and I was talking to somebody about it, and I was basically realizing that, if you use, depression, sadness, whatever, as a measuring stick, because like realistically, how would you know what happiness was really like if you never experienced sadness? So it's like the contrast of those two is what makes happiness so much better. And I feel like too often nowadays we spend an inordinate amount of time trying to be happy, but you can't,
Seeking,
yeah,
like
seeking
seeking
happiness.
happiness. Yeah.
But what we end up doing is we end up trying to prevent sadness and not actually seeking happiness. And so, like, as an example, was basically today, I was talking to this girl that I'm friends with, and she was like, "Yeah, I'm basically done with men, blah 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 blah." And I think that essentially that attitude is because they've experienced sadness, because they've experienced failure in the dating market or whatever, and then they don't want to experience that again, and so they would rather not try to find happiness by just ignoring being sad, or at least preventing themselves from being sad. And so you miss out on the opportunity to be happy, because sometimes you have to be sad to like appreciate happiness. Sometimes you have to go out there, take a chance, fail, be upset about it, and that, you know, is the catalyst to some sort of happiness and success. And missing out on that journey, I think, is like what I think just too many people nowadays are just trying to prevent themselves from being sad and just avoiding, what they think makes them sad, which could potentially be the best thing that ever happened to them, right? I don't know how you guys feel about
I
it,
don't
but
have a lot to to add to this because I'm always happy. I'm
Bullshit.
never
A
sad.
lot of bullshit
As you
to
can
add
tell
to this
from
motherfucker.
from our messaging group,
this
I'm
motherfucker's
always
never
happy.
Mhm.
I'm always
Uh,
happy.
I think
I mean,
so.
just
One of the things I did, Chris, I think is really cool. This is actually a great sort of thing. So when I was younger, I read this thing called the Tao Te Ching by this is the Taoist, like the
mhm.
Tao, and it was like it's a series of poems, right? And Taoism is sort of like this ancient sort of Chinese religion or Eastern religion, and it's really interesting. And basically, what it really defines, and that's where the yin and the yang symbol comes from,
Right,
right, from Taoism. And so like basically what the whole thing it talks about in these poems is like, what if it was like, how would you know what beauty is if you didn't know what ugliness was? How would
right,
you know the warmth of the light if you didn't feel the cold of the night? And so like that concept is the basis for existence, right? And so he finds pleasure, he finds peace, right, in knowing that for every negative feeling that you felt, there is an equal and opposite positive one that you will feel as well. And that's sort of how life is ditched out, right? And maybe not in
right.
that order, and sort of the way of things. So it's really cool that you came to sort of the same sort of realization, through conversation, that this gentleman also, I don't know what he did, ate a bunch of noodles, but whatever he did, he figured it out. That, and then I wanted to say that, like, kudos, that's cool, like I love that, and I haven't revisited that since you just mentioned it, right? This whole, like,
Right.
and the ultimate thing I took away from reading the Tao is gratitude, right? And so like you have to like say, like, the smallest thing on the planet is just as important as like the biggest thing on the planet, right? Because they are equal and opposites of each other and couldn't exist, in balance if they weren't that way. And so there's a
Right.
lot of gratitude that goes in through that. And then the other thing I wanted to talk about, based on what you said, that was really cool, is like, so there's an interesting point about what you just said about sort of the way that society is sort of reacting. And one of the things that we know in psychology, right, or in general, just common knowledge, is that like our body tends to respond and focus on things that are negative because they're important to our survival, more than to focus on things where we're
Right.
seeking pleasure. And so as we enter into a system that's blanketed more and more by inputs that are controlled by other people, and I'm talking about exposure to media and all of that stuff are just inputs that you're taking in that are controlled by other people you're absorbing. The easiest way to control those people, or to control the people putting that input in, taking that input in, would be to slightly tip the scale so it's a little more negative than positive, so you wouldn't realize, but that as time goes on, society now becomes more anxious because as those controls kind of compound each other right now, and nobody's trying to do it like all out, right? Nobody's being like, hey, there's a bomb, and like nobody pays attention to that. But if you watch the news for a week, or if you read poems for a week and you take a test, I'm pretty sure there's going to be a difference in your state of anxiety. And so I think in general, because now we are experiencing so many controlled forms of input or media, whether it's audible, whether it's, virtual, whether it's through your phone, whether it's on the internet, whatever it is, and then the general news and stuff like that, that we're sort of feeling sort of this boiling frog point. Right. And like, well, let's pretend that like every generation, the government wants a little bit more control, or whoever the fuck is in control. I'm not trying to blame the government. And so now we've done this for a couple hundred years. Right. And with some inventions. And now we're to a point where like we're almost at the breaking point where like if there's a little more anxiety in society, like we might rebel. Right. And so I think that may be something that we're feeling is this compounding of these control mechanisms that have been put in place over generations that are slightly more negative than they are positive, just so that make sure that you're not going to forget, right?
Yeah, I think that was a very good answer, Ricardo and Chris. I'm very happy that you've come to the realization that you have to have to experience one of those in order to understand the other. Listen, I think it's also a psychological manipulation since we were
Tell
born.
me to listen.
I think it's one of those things where growing up, everybody says you are trying to achieve happiness. You're always supposed to be happy, but our society is generated to be sad all day long. Negativity. That's the world that we live in. And it's funny because when you work in corporate America or you work, it's like, oh, I got a PTO day. I got a day to go on vacation. That's where I'm ultimately happy when I go on vacation. But it's like a snippet. It's only a period of time. Then you got to go back to work. So it's behavioral. It's behavioral manipulation on you over and over. Now, there's all different aspects of it. It's relationship wise. Like Ricardo said something very good. He was like, you have to realize something's small in order to realize the other thing is big or whatever. And I was thinking of Chris. I had to realize you were small in order to realize I was big. So
it's real short king energy right there.
Definitely not talking about darts, I'll tell you that.
Fuck you. I'm the best dart player on earth. No.
Past life. You're proof of other dimensions with that statement.
Yeah. There's a multiverse out there because I'm the fucking worst dart player, just like you're the worst steak maker of all time.
I was telling somebody about this the other day.
I'll have to challenge that. I think I'm pretty good at it.
I was telling somebody about this the other day about how funny men are. That like I was like, yeah, my buddy's like 6'1", and we fuck with him about being short. He's like he's not. You're not short. You know what I mean? But like
he's just, yeah, exactly. You're the shortest, but of the three, it's all good. Yeah, but we test each other, right? Because the whole thing back to what Jordan Peterson says, we're like a useless man is no good to men or society or whatever. And so like when guys go to the coal mine and they like make a nickname like, hey, what's up, Dumbo, or whatever, like it's just to make sure that you're not soft, right? Because they can't use a soft guy. They need a guy that's not soft. It's not because they're personally attacking you or they think you're a punk or like somebody's picking on you. It's just to make sure that you can handle a couple words, because if the fucking ceiling breaks in the coal mine, the words aren't going to matter, dog. So like I think it's a little more about, and it does get taken out of hand. It's used a lot to attack people, I think. But in general, when guys joke around, I think we do it just to make sure everybody's on the same level of comfort.
It's a fuck around language. It's like a respect language.
Yeah.
There's one thing I wanted to say. There's one last thing I wanted to say. Sadness and happiness are always tied to each other because realistically, it's like hitting your down. It's like success. You have to go down in order to go up, or you have to hit rock bottom to understand how strong you are. You're never, no matter in life what happens, you're not always going to be sad 24 hours a day, and you're never going to be happy 24 hours a day. They're intertwined with each other, and you also have to be sad to understand and find happiness. I know for me, my happiness is my family and playing golf, okay, and my dog and cat. But outside of that, I know when I was living by myself and I had no friends, I was sad as shit. I knew that. I knew that I had to have friends and Ricardo. So as a friend was there. So I realized
Poor
being
choice,
like my
but yeah, I
son.
get it.
Yeah. There's this guy. I
Yeah,
forget
he
who.
kept on following me around. I couldn't get him away from me.
That was a bunch. I wanted the free TV, man.
So
There's this.
Everybody, I gave him a free TV.
There's this guy, Chris, real quick. I forget who it was who said and it's great, right? Just what Mike is saying is like, if you don't seek pain out, life will bring it to you. So if you want to be in control of the negative things, seek them out. That's the only way to control. You can't prevent them. Yeah.
Yeah, so I mean the declaration, it says life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, right? And so I think the pursuit is the key point there, right? And that's kind of what that statement I said earlier about, pursuing the outcome versus the journey, right, sort of thing.
Yeah.
And so like if basically the whole point of where I was going with this entire thing was originally, it's like if you're not pursuing happiness, then you're missing out, like completely missing out, because the ebbs and flows of that pursuit will make it basically for a lot of reasons. But one, basically, the contrast will make the happiness even better. But at the same time, like you're going to miss out on a bunch of things if you try to maintain some sort of neutrality, right? If you're trying to just ride the middle where I don't want to be unhappy, you're just going to miss out on life, right? And something that I was trying to realize today is that I feel like I have done that too often in the past, where I've avoided confrontation or avoided whatever because of a fear of the negative outcome, because I've experienced a negative outcome in my past. And so as in that avoiding the negative outcome, I'm missing out on the positive outcome, essentially.
Yeah.
Over the potential of a positive
Well,
outcome.
yeah, you can't have one without the other. There's a Taoism right there. I'm gonna bring up something Doug said today, my buddy at Scorpion Percussion, and Mike.
Shout out Scorpion Percussion.
Thank you very much.
Percussion.
He said something that really kind of knocked me over, and he's had some good ones.
Well, he's
but
a
this
big
one,
guy, so it's not hard.
Yeah.
You can knock me
Well,
over
he
pretty
called me out on.
easily.
I'll talk about something else that he called me out on too. Chris, is really interesting. But so he said, I'm not emotionally tied to the work that I do. I'm emotionally tied to how I do it. And I was like, that's gangster. He's like, and I was like, I get it. And so I think what he was saying is that his happiness doesn't come from performing the work. The happiness comes from the effort that he makes while he's performing the work. So the journey for him in general is what keeps him happy or emotionally like fulfilled. So I thought it was really good, pretty good.
Well, purpose. I mean, having purpose, right?
Creating purpose. I mean, like a lot of
Yeah,
people say the word have, and I think that, one of the things that I'm going to jump into here with this synchronicity is about meaning. And so, like, a lot of people, I think, struggle with meaning because they use the word have, right? Oh, I need to have meaning. Well, you have meaning because you're alive, you're existing, you're very special. Although there's a lot of us, but we're kind of in this weird fucking rock flying around in this weird place. And so there's goodness to that, but in order to have meaning, you have to create your own meaning, right? And in order to do that, it's going to take some time for inner reflection. And what that means is not paying so much attention on the outcomes, like Chris was saying, on the outcomes of business and men and whatever, and paying a little bit more attention to like how you feel or what your inner voice is kind of telling you, like creating joy. Like I think that's one of them, and through that and through the pursuit and the curiosity of outcomes, right, comes meaning in itself. And there's a Spanish Mexican poet, and I forget his name, but he says
Don Quixote.
Cervantes. I think it might be Cervantes.
Cervantes, yeah.
And so
Wait,
he
who
says,
is it? What'd you say? It was a what Spanish
Mexican
poet?
poet, yeah, or Mexican, Spanish, Cervantes. I think he
Okay.
and
Bad Bunny?
Yeah, Bad Bunny. So tell me if I'm wrong, but somebody put it in the comments if I'm right. And so he has this thing that says, "Caminante el camino se hace en caminar," which means like it means like journeyman. The path is made by walking the path itself. Like there is no path ahead. You create the path by moving one foot in front of the other. And so I think that's kind of another thing here that we're talking a little bit about how to create meaning. And the meaning comes basically from taking action in any direction, right? Even if it's positive, I'm someone who's much more comfortable with experimentation, right? So I'm probably over walking the path, right? And some people do it differently, but unless you put it out there, unless you do it, you're not going to create that path for yourself, and you won't have meaning. There's no one's going to dispose meaning on you. It's not like knighthood. And so with Jung, who's one of my homies, I really like this guy, you guys know, Carl Gustav, Jung was a great thinker. He was kind of homeboys with Freud, but they actually broke apart on their theories in one very specific way that applies to what we're going to talk about. And so Freud believed that everything in your past affected how you would face life and life challenges. And Jung believed that everything in your future and how you projected yourself into your future was the way to sort of define your own existence. And one of the things that Jung coined was this term of synchronicity, which a lot of people sort of overuse, right? And synchronicity is a term that comes like basically like this, like you and I are having a conversation, right? And let's call it, it's almost like universal advertising. You know how when you're talking to your buddy about Nikes and you open your phone and then there's some Nikes? And so like when the universe does that, or right, you know what I'm saying, like a Nike ad.
Don't get me started.
The universe, right?
Universe, yeah.
No. That has nothing to do with that's totally to do with advertisers. But the basis of synchronicity, right, is that it isn't that these things are happening on purpose. Like when you think of like your buddy and then your buddy calls or whatever like that. It's not that these things are happening on purpose. They're not caused by anything in specific. But if you recognize them in your life, it's not because there's a coincidence. It's because they have specific meaning to you. And the more meaning that you create for yourself, the more of these things that you'll see in your environment, not because the universe is advertising and hooking in, but because you're actually able to attach more meaning to the life that you're living in general. And so it's a good indicator that you're on the right path because you're the assigner of meaning. It's not causal. There isn't a universal advertiser that put that bee in front of you when you saw a bee in the morning and you go outside and you see a bee. No. There's bees everywhere. But the fact that you're able to create meaning from some of these important moments or like deja vu style things is saying that your mind is in the right place and you're now in charge of the meaning creation for yourself instead of relying on the external.
So is it almost like confirmation bias, where like you see a red car or you buy a Ferrari and now you see them everywhere or whatever?
Exactly,
Like
totally, 100%. And so, like, if you're evil and you're mad, then every person you interact with just happens to be in a bad fucking mood, right? And that's what synchronicity is. And so, like, if you adjust yourself and your ability to create meaning for your life, then the things will synchronize with you, and you'll notice the positive things if you have a positive adjustment in your head. Makes sense? And so that's what synchronicity really is. It's nothing to do with purpose or like magical universe placing things, or it just has to do with that exact thing that Chris said, is if you buy a red car, all of a sudden you see red cars. If you're angry and all your thoughts are angry, everybody around you is going to be angry. You're only going to focus on those things. It's a good one.
Good point.
Yeah, I mean, and then right into being vulnerable as a man.
I'm about to sneeze. Hold on. It's coming. It's almost.
Suck it up. Suck it up, Buttercup. Suck it up.
Yeah.
Suck it up.
Shut the fuck up, both of you.
Freud would say that you have, some sexual attraction to your mother because you're about to sneeze. So
Jung would say that you should wear a dress and see if you like yourself playing your mother.
Anyways,
Damn.
as we
Shout out
go
to Mike's
back
mom.
to this,
Shut up, Miss.
I knew you'd fucking do
Anonymous.
it. I knew you'd do it. You two are the biggest scumbags.
hey, your mom's awesome. Okay.
Yeah, we love your mom. She's one of our
love your
biggest
mom.
fans. We have four fans.
We have 2 fans. Yeah, 3
Yeah.
fans or whatever.
Jeff is
One of
definitely
them's my
on.
mom. One of them's your mom. One of them's Jeff.
Yeah,
I'll have her bake cookies and send it to you guys. Okay.
I love cookies.
AP
yeah.
cookies. I like chocolate.
Yeah, I'll get you some. Don't worry. Being vulnerable as a man. This is kind of my topic. Wanted to talk with you guys. Get your opinion on this. We obviously have a large male presence on here.
What?
I have a different viewpoint on certain things of being a male. I don't want to be vulnerable. Period. At all. There's no chance. I don't want to. See, I think it takes experience to realize that kind of lesson. I think it takes you to open up sometimes and to get hurt one time to realize vulnerability is not good if you're just throwing vulnerability out there. Obviously, I think you could be vulnerable toward your family. I think if you're in a relationship with somebody, you should never be vulnerable. That's just my opinion.
Well, you're talking about heterosexual relationship because like.
Come on, I'm waiting for your punchline.
No,
I'm waiting for your fucking punch.
No, you're saying,
yeah.
but you're saying relationships. But I'm saying like,
Yeah,
you're
I mean,
talking about romantic relationships.
Yeah. I don't think you could ever be vulnerable because it always gets thrown in your face. I think I personally I
But
think it takes
so
a lot.
what do you consider vulnerability? Like what's like because I kind of I
Expressing a little bit, expressing a little bit of your emotions, putting your guard down. Um, you know, vulnerability means to allow yourself to get hurt in some perspective, meaning to
it's
put yourself in a position where you're letting somebody in, like
I
letting somebody. Go ahead.
well, go ahead and finish your thing. I just wanted to I
But you
wanted
just
to
cut me off, and I wasn't able to finish
continue.
because I lost my train of thought.
Well, I was gonna say I think that, and I know this is going to sound really weird, but I believe that the true strength as a
Everything you say
man,
is
right?
weird.
Yeah, the true strength as a man isn't how somebody else treats you. The true strength is how you react to it. And so, like, if I'm vulnerable and somebody's a cunt and I get pissy and cry for 6 months, guess whose fault that is? Is it that person's fault? No,
No,
it's
it's
my pussy
it's
ass
your
fault.
fault, but
There you go. And so if you have to build enough self-confidence so that you can selectively be vulnerable with people that you trust, like me and like myself or like Chris and myself. And when you get into a relationship with any kind of creature or material thing, and I've had many relationships with material things, the same process or escalation of vulnerability, let's call it, should apply. If you go on a first date and you talk about how your last relationship was shit and like your girlfriend did this and that, like you're just not ready to be dating, right? It has nothing to do
yeah,
with being vulnerable. But Doug is always forcing me, and I have this professionally, right? And so what he's noticed over a couple of years of working with me is that because of my experience in corporate America, and like in corporate America, dude, if you have like an inch of window open, motherfuckers are gonna break in, right? And so like you have to be very guarded on like your abilities and what kind of work you do and what kind of promises you make, right? And so like with that, now that we're in a more of an entrepreneurial sense, he's encouraging me to not do that. He's encouraging me to not do that as much and to say, hey, look, dude, like I get it, but you know, this isn't that place, right? And this is a different place, and we need your creativity. So I need you to kind of like go off and tell me like what the fuck you think on this and that. And it helps that he reminds me to do that.
well,
And then I go back and I think, you know, when I think of my experience, I think, okay, well, that was just my experience of that Ricardo then, and the Ricardo today isn't that person. We're always constantly evolving. And what I've learned is that like maybe a more mature Ricardo in that environment would have reacted right to the pressures in a different way. And I think that's the only agency that I really have, and the only growth that I can do isn't to stop being vulnerable, because I want to continue to let people in. I don't want to push people away, right? But the problem is with that, I'm going to have to accept that hurt is going to come, and the cold plunge helps me. Okay, getting the cold plunge in the morning, dude. Like, fine, break my heart. You know, like I still gotta get up, and my balls are gonna be 36 degrees tomorrow morning.
yeah,
Right?
but you're right. If you're gonna allow yourself to be vulnerable, let people in, and you gotta accept the fact that you will be hurt, and you gotta live with being hurt. But the whole element of being vulnerable is not being opening up to everybody. It's about trust. It's about being able to feel comfortable with somebody, and if it's the right a time to be vulnerable, if it's the right person to be vulnerable, and that takes years of allowing yourself to get to that point. That's why I'm only vulnerable with my family, realistically. And my friends that I've had for a long period of time, like that I know I can talk about things with. But overall, I'm sorry. Every time I've been vulnerable in a relationship in some facet, it's always kicked me in the ass. And I don't know if that vulnerability would ever come out the same way because of the past. And maybe I'm wrong for my thought process on that, because I'll be the first one to admit maybe I'm wrong for that. But that's just my experience. What's your thoughts, Chris?
Well, I think maybe we're conflicting a little bit of what letting someone in and being vulnerable is. So, like, letting someone in doesn't mean that you're um, like allowing them to have the ability to harm you, right? I mean, like, letting somebody in is just involving them in your life, right? That doesn't mean that you hand them a shotgun and hope that they don't shoot you with it. So, like, vulnerability to me is illustrating a weakness, sharing a weakness with someone, that and that person has the opportunity to use that against you, right? Whatever that is.
You're
And
right. I just looked up that definition, and that's exactly what it is. Is emotional vulnerability is equal to letting somebody in with emotions about feeling hurt, scared, or sad, or anything that might, you know, that they could be used against you in that way.
yeah, because I mean, I feel like we incorporate people in our lives. I would consider that letting someone in, right? Incorporating my life with theirs, But that doesn't mean, like I said, I'm not handing them a loaded weapon and hoping that they don't kill me with it emotionally, right? I'm not telling them like, you know, what my triggers are, like what history I've had, what problems I have, all the other things, because all that information can be used against me. But like when it comes to certain people, I share that information with, because I trust that they're not going to, throw it back at me. But that's not really why you do it. You don't do it because you trust that they won't hurt you. You do it because you need it just as much as they need it, and regardless of whether or not they harm you with it, it's not important. Again, it's the journey, right? I mean, if you don't share that kind of stuff with somebody, even if you don't trust, I mean, I would recommend you do it with someone you trust, but that shouldn't be the focus. The focus should be on the sharing part of it, and sharing with someone that you trust. Now, as far as like male female relationships for us are concerned, vulnerability is almost always bad. Like, women want us to be vulnerable, quote unquote, but that's not true, because um, we are in a relationship, a romantic relationship with women, under the condition that we will protect them if needed. And the more weaknesses we demonstrate, the less safe they will feel, right? And so it's not apples to apples when it comes to romantic relationships and like us, right? And I don't think any of us have really shown any vulnerability on the podcast. Like, we haven't said anything that I would consider that somebody would like throw back in my face that I would give a fuck about, right? I mean, who cares? Like, all the shit we've said. Now, the stuff that we talk about, like behind closed doors, like especially Ricardo and I, we've gone down some rabbit holes. Long walks on the beach on Torrey Pines, right?
Not
But
like people think it is.
I was just gonna say,
not like
were you
that,
holding
no.
hands,
holding
Chris?
hands
Were
and
you,
skipping, of course.
No.
Yeah, fuck yeah, dude. No,
mhm.
but yeah, I think, like I said, I think we're conflating letting people in and vulnerability. I think those are two different things. Personally, that's how I feel. I feel like I let you guys in, but like I've been way more vulnerable with Ricardo. I don't think I've really ever said a whole lot to you, Mike. Not that I wouldn't at some point in the future. We just have.
I don't want you to fucking say anything to me, because you're not
Yeah,
gonna
Mike's
get it
a
out
lawyer.
of me.
He'll definitely use it against you.
I'll fucking use it against you in a heartbeat. All right.
No,
I'll
I
use
think
it in
I
a
think
court
if
of
you
law.
I think if you don't have somebody in your life that you could say whatever you want to, and them not blow it up in your face, then you're gonna always struggle in like romantic relationships, because
I
like
think-
Absolutely.
yeah, because like basically you want, and I've been guilty of this in the past too. I didn't have someone like that I felt I could talk to about, and so then I dump all that shit on my girlfriend, and that never works out.
Never works out. Yeah. No, I agree.
You know, I heard you should share all your emotions and all your feelings with your girlfriend. I think that's the best plan. I think you should. When
Yeah,
you're sad,
if you're a girlfriend, yeah, if you want to be their girlfriend, yeah, that's totally fine.
Yeah. I mean, I've always noticed that when couples, and not that they break up, but when couples, the male is like super wants everything out in the open. You know what I'm saying? Like feeling wise. And I'm not, and this has nothing to do, but I've noticed that those couples, whether it's real or not, tend to argue more, a lot more. They argue about a lot of different things. And I'm not saying that doesn't make the relationship good or bad, but they're definitely more argumentative than when people, I'm not saying keep your feelings to yourself, but like when you are like, and it would be great to be vulnerable with your partner, but I think all of that takes a lot more time with a female than it does with a man. And I think the reason that people that do well and better in relationships usually have good friends groups, I think it's because it's the support system that Chris is talking about. So like somebody besides your girlfriend that you can ask questions like, hey man, should I get jealous about this or something? Like,
Right.
just air out your stuff. And I think those are the people that actually do better. And then eventually you can capture that relationship with your female or male counterpart. But I think when mating is concerned, there's definitely a little bit of a different trajectory. This whole like you meet somebody and you're telling each other everything from number one, and those people are usually hot and heavy at the beginning and they don't really last.
Well, so what you're talking about, Ricardo, is the argument. That's just women testing electric fence because they don't feel safe. So,
and that's what I noticed is like you tell somebody like, hey, I'm feeling bad about work, and then all of a sudden, like a week later, she's complaining about whether we have enough money. She doesn't realize it, but like, you know what I mean? You created a hole there that needs to get
You're
filled.
creating insecurities, and so then she feels like she needs to like take some proactive role in whatever it is because she doesn't feel safe. So the more, like I said, the more vulnerable you are with your romantic partner as a man, the more she's gonna start to like test the fences to see if you can still protect and provide, and it's just gonna cause dissonance in the relationship. Um,
I think it does not. I think if you are in a relationship, you should talk about your feelings 24/7. Like, I think personally, if you're depressed, you should tell them all the time that you're depressed. Like, you want a hug.
It sounds like a Care Bear more than I think. Yeah.
Yeah.
How does that work?
I need
out
a hug right now.
How did that?
How
Does
did it
that
work
work
out?
out? Okay. Does it work out okay? Cool. I think on any of these theories, anything that leads to more understanding is good. You know, and I think the bottom line here that we discussed mostly is that it's good to have a support group of females or males
100%.
that you're not trying to fuck, and tell
Right.
those people
Yeah.
how you feel, and it will help you when you're trying to fuck someone and have a relationship with them at the same time. So I think that that's important as well. And I think, you know, when we pour everything into a relationship, you know, that creates a lot of codependency. I also believe that, you know, one of the things I'm learning is like this thing of absorption. Or like that, you know, Chris used that, we use that word, so I started looking it up. And so, you know, I realized that like if you have issues, whether they're conscious or not, you know, the other person literally absorbs them, especially if you vocalize them. And so like if you're in a relationship and you're putting all of your issues also on top of that relationship, you're actually kind of fucking with your partner, dude. You know what I mean? Either way, right? It's just like, you know, like if you don't feel like you look good in a dress and like you start hawking on your partner, and now he feels insecure about how he looks, you know? And so it's just, there's got to be a culmination of things.
I'm so fly. No girl telling me I look bad. I'll tell her that fucking dress looks.
There's that short king energy again.
Shout out Scorpion
No,
Percussion.
it's called being a dick. It's called being a dickhead in this game that works well.
Oh, being a New Yorker. Yeah, got it. That
Being a
makes
New Yorker. Yeah.
Oh wow, that's good. I'll remember when I had my first beer with you.
What? I think that joke faded.
I don't know that
confused.
joke. That
Yeah,
joke.
felt
That
bad.
joke bombed.
Yeah.
That joke bombed.
Anyways, you got anything else you guys want
Take
to talk
that
about?
out. Take that out.
We will from the topics.
cut-
I'll take
we'll
it out
cut
from the
We'll
topic.
cut it. Yeah, I feel
Uh,
like just to like just real quick. I think too often we try to make, you know, our romantic partner wear too many hats, and it's just setting us up for failure. I mean, you definitely can't have your wife be your mom and your lover and you know the parent of your child and also your psychologist and your therapist and you know your best friend and all those things. I mean,
Yeah.
just you're asking for trouble. So
But that's also the flip side, though. You know, the
what's
problem
the
is
flip side?
it's also the flip side when you look at it from the other angle. I know what you're saying. You're talking it from a male's perspective, but it's also any female that are listening on the podcast. It's also from the other perspective as well. Can't be always the protector, the provider. You can't the best friend, like you said. They can't be the guardsman. They can't be like all the other shit. The mechanic,
I mean, I like Indian women. Back to our first topic. I think they're cute. They're like
Well, no,
send
to
us
your point,
I want
it doesn't
cricket.
matter. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter any relationship that you're in. Any relationship, whether it's romantic or friend, right? In this group right now, like if I expect Ricardo to meet all of my needs all the time, then the relationship's going to fail. This is not how.
Are you saying Ricardo's not meeting your needs?
right? So
Never,
what I
no.
need is Ricardo to be my friend and a mentor and someone I confide
Whoa.
in. But like Ricardo can't be my girlfriend, can't be my lover, can't be my dad, can't be my mom, right?
Won't do it.
Right?
But I thought you guys
So-
walked on the beach together in La Jolla.
Yeah,
Those
yeah,
days
I
are in
mean,
the past, Mike.
let it go, man.
You moved away. You left us.
I
did.
left you.
Yeah, I did.
Both of you punks. You're
Yeah, it's not
smart
good
though.
to
You guys
have-
are
it's not
both
good to
richer.
put
You
that
guys are both
much pressure on
wealthier
any-
for it.
It's not good to put that much pressure on any person, right?
No, I agree with you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then it's even worse when you when the relationship ends for whatever reason, because then now what? Like you put like
Oh,
all
I
of
do.
this,
Let me ask you a question. When a
so you're
relationship
devastated.
when a relationship ends, are you the type of person that just deletes it all? Like block, delete, gone, done. That's the way I do it. Sorry, you're more
That's-
mature than me. If for me to get over somebody when I'm invested, I gotta go.
Well, I think that's the problem is
Zero.
because you're putting basically all of your investment into one person and it doesn't work out, then
Get one of those.
it's just not. It's just very difficult to have a friendship or any sort of relationship with someone that you gave 125%, and then it didn't work out, right? Because
145%,
whatever
like I
it
did
is.
to tariffs to China.
yeah,
I also think that this thing of like this guy brought up Shapiro of roles.
Benjamin?
Yeah, Ben Shapiro. He actually brought this thing up that was pretty smart about roles, and he's like, in life we all as people play different roles, and he's like, the role you play at work and the role you play at home, dad, husband. He's like, all of those are different roles, and with different roles comes different, personalities and states of being. And so as if people I think are sort of like unifying the entirety of every interaction they have with a human being is that there's got to be some general way they can just never feel pain again, right? And that doesn't happen. And so I think if you adopt it and think like, hey, if I have to be a certain way to help the relationship, it's not because I'm abridging my personality, it's because that's what this role requires. And just like every other role, you don't have to take that role. You can get another role, right? You can audition and go get another role, right? But you have to be willing and ready to do that. And so when you're not, and when you become codependent, then it becomes an attack on an existential attack on your personality instead of you being in a role. And so part of it maintaining a role is always maintaining that you can always walk away from the role, right? And if at some point you can't, then that's when you go out to your support group and you say, hey, what is it about this person or this situation that's kind of tying me to this, that I can't handle myself? Like, what need is that, And so I think that's a good way to look at it.
I think the opposite side of that, what you're saying, Ricardo, I think that a lot of people are afraid that they're going to play the wrong role in the wrong situation, and so they're going to be the causal factor for why it doesn't work out, and so they want to maintain some sort of neutrality so that they don't fuck it up. But in being neutral, you are fucking it up.
But I would say like I disagree, and part of learning is fucking things up, and so the best way to do that without being anxious about it is to default, when you don't know how to play the role, in your own authenticity. Be yourself, right? That way you're not like making something different up and fucking with everyone's reality, right? Be yourself. Let them judge you. Take that feedback. Don't take it personally because you've already pre-planned that I don't know how to act in this role, right? Take the feedback and course correct. So
now that I'm thinking about this in real time. So I think Lewis Howes wrote a book about masks, the masks of masculinity. And so I think, and Mike, to your point, right? So maybe part of the problem is, the mask that you wear, taking that off is you being vulnerable. So like being your authentic self is what you think is being vulnerable. And so that could be the part of the problem. Is that you don't feel that your authentic self is something that people would want to interact with, and so that's why you feel being vulnerable is just being authentic.
I think Chris is. I don't know. I think so. I had a.
How do you want me to pay you? Do you want me to pay you Venmo,
No, but
Zelle?
and so I had a conversation with my sister about this, and I was like, man, I keep getting into these relationships with great girls, and I end up like not being able to come in after a few years, right? And there's always some dissonance, and like her and I were talking a little bit about it. She's a female in my family, right? And one of the things that what I identified, with her help a little bit too, was that I was too afraid to let that person judge who I really was deep down. Right. And so part of it was working towards, getting to a point where I was comfortable with who I was. And that had a lot to do with changing my life. I had to change my job. I had to leave my job. I had to figure out that, okay, if I wanted to do the things that I love, material surplus may not be in the immediate future for a little while for me. I had to understand that okay, dude, you're alone, you got your shit covered, but there ain't no family and no little kids telling you they love you when you come home. Can you deal with that? Is music and broadcasting and all the stuff you're doing, is that worth it to you? And then I had to come to terms with that, and the only person I can make an agreement with was myself. And now recently I feel like I'm doing a lot better of presenting myself authentically, but I only do that because I try to approach situations where my job is to present myself authentically, not to meet somebody I'm gonna sleep with. And so the second that changes in my mind, all of that old stuff comes back. all of the
Right.
old. I'll see a girl at a shout out Music is for Lovers party. Tons of great music, tons of great women, and I'll see some pretty girl dancing, and I'll be like, oh wow, and then all of a sudden it just it changes. It's like I'm 11 years old again, right? But if I'm like, wait, what do I really want? Well, I'm here for the music, and I look up and I'm like, hey man, I'm really lucky to be at this Music is for Lovers party. And then I look at the beach and I'm like, I'm pretty fucking lucky to be here in California. And then I look at my buddies and they're all having a great time, and I'm like, damn, I'm surrounded by motherfuckers that are all smiling, having a great time. Then I'm like, boom, then the Ricardo comes out, and then as soon as I see that girl in the audience again, he goes right back in. So it's still challenging, but at least I have an idea of where that is, like who that person is, and it's going to take some time to really present that in a way where I can maintain that. But at least I was able to save that motherfucker's soul from going into like some persona, and that maybe he's going to live, whether it was to please my parents or whatever, you know, and out of that environment and back into the artistic life and say, hey, look, this is what you are, man. You got to die this way. You want to die trying to look back on your accomplishments, or do you want to die as an artist? And I made a promise with myself, is like, I'm gonna die as a fucking artist. I don't care, doesn't matter if I have money or not. That's what I want to leave this world behind. So it was a very hard process, and both of you saw how much psychological rearranging needed to happen in order for that to even become a reality internally, right? Yeah, and I'm not recommending that everybody do it, especially if you have a family, man. Don't be doing this shit in the middle of like your kids growing up, because you have one of these crises and you're gonna lose half your shit. But if you're able to be, you know, recognized enough that you may have to do something to overcome a persona complex, you know, and to chase off at some of the things that you're looking for, then I recommend that you do it. But it is a very tough challenge. Let's wrap it up, guys. Anyways, thanks for joining us this week, and we had some good topics. As always, our news topics were interesting but kind of boring, and then our other stuff was really fun. The Rico's Britney Spears tarot reading is always a highlight for me. Yeah, and always shout out to Scorpion Percussion, not our official sponsor, and shout out Music is for Lovers. They're just cool. Anyways, guys, catch us every week here on all of these channels, broadcast everywhere at 4 p.m. Pacific, 7 p.m. Eastern. We're also on Spotify. We're working on our iTunes thing, so we should be up there pretty soon. So you'll be able to download our episodes on Apple iTunes podcast, and you'll get notifications. Be sure to check out some of our new stuff that we have on the YouTube channel. We split up some of our episodes into topics. A couple, 2 or 3 past episodes are now in easily digestible format. You know, anywhere between 7 and 20 minutes. You can check out one specific topic and see what kind of nonsense we're talking about having to do with that. And as always, check out our reels. Shout out to Chris for making those happen for us every day. Those are kind of fun. Found those on Instagram and on YouTube. And Mike is managing our X channel, so follow us on X. Visit us there. Talk shit to Mike on X. That is the shit talking.
Please do it. I love to
so
talk
the
shit
biggest
back.
shit talker on the podcast is managing the shit talking platform, and it's
love
that
it.
way for a reason.
I
guys.
love it.
And you know, be nice to each other. Do something cool for somebody that you love, and you know, we'll catch you guys next week. Thanks for tuning in. As always, Mike in New York, Elvis in Indianapolis, and I'm
You're
Rico
the
in
corniest
California.
fuck alive.
Lower the taxes, please. All right, guys. See you next.